here in North Manhattan.
All right. Well, thanks so much. I was going to ask you about, New York tonight reassured people so much everything's fine, but then all of a sudden we're hearing about more investigations of places. So thank you for pointing that out. It'll be interesting to see what develops around his place as this story progresses. Thank you, Miguel Marquez, for us. Now, back to Errol.
Now, because we're speaking of such a deadly virus and because it is such a horrific virus, this is freaking people out, quite frankly. So let's bring in Dr. Devi Nampiaparampil. She's an assistant professor at New York University School of Medicine, has really helped us walk through the science of this since the news broke that this patient does, in fact, have Ebola there in New York. Dr. Devi, thanks so much for staying with us through the late hours tonight.
Just first, thank you for having me.
Because so many people are watching this and they're suspicious, they're wondering, are people really as safe as officials made it seem they are? Just explain to us to what degree an Ebola patient is contagious before they have a fever, because, this New York patient did feel sluggish in the days before he recorded a fever. He said he had a fever Thursday, but Wednesday and the days before he was out bowling, he took the subway. Incrementally, could there have been a possibility that a certain level of the Ebola virus could have been contagious at that point?
Well, I think we have to keep a couple things in mind. So Ebola is only transmitted through bodily fluids, and pretty much you're looking at how much virus is actually in the body fluids. So when someone has no symptoms, they pretty much don't have the virus really circulating in their bodily fluids. But once they start getting symptoms, those are usually proportional to how much the virus is actually taking a hold of your body. So, from my perspective, no, it's not like a fine line, but at the same time, if you didn't have any real symptoms in terms of the fever, which is usually the first symptom, the risk of having Ebola or spreading Ebola is very low in terms of spreading it to other people. Once you started having symptoms like the fever, the risk goes up quite a bit. So I think in this case, it is concerning that this person was in public places, but at that time he didn't have any symptoms. And once he had symptoms, he was immediately taken to Bellevue.
And we should note that by all accounts, Dr. Spencer was self-monitoring. Médecins Sans Frontières has said he's been following protocol, and there's no reason at this moment to believe that there's any reason to worry. However, considering that naturally there's the science and then there's the social aspect of this.
Of course.
The science comes forward and it says, don't worry, it won't happen, but we are seeing now that his place will be cleaned, the bowling alley is going to be sanitized, the Uber taxi that he took didn't need that level of cleaning because there was no direct contact. However, to avoid panic, we're not sure what's going to happen when some of the tabloids post this on their front pages there in New York tomorrow. Should the CDC be more strict? Should there be a mandatory 21-day quarantine for these medics returning from West Africa, if for nothing else, to not add fuel to the fearful fire that's already burning in so many places?
Well, you brought up a couple good points. I mean, the first thing is I think we need to have a plan and some consistency. So if we say that a person has to have a mandatory 21-day quarantine, I think that would work, but there are some risks to that as well. So, if we have that being mandatory, then a lot of these folks may not go to West Africa to provide humanitarian aid because that 21-day quarantine period is going to keep them out of work. It's going to keep them from seeing their friends and family. It's also going to keep them from, potentially in a place like New York City, ordering food or getting their laundry done or getting anything done. So, that might restrict humanitarian and relief workers. So that's one thing to keep in mind. On the other hand, I think here there was a lot of confusion because Dr. Spencer was checking his temperature twice a day. So he was trying to follow guidelines. But at the same time, being in these public places now, I mean, we can say it's low risk, but as you mentioned, there's the public perception. What is actually going on? This is not a real quarantine.
Right, okay, well, we'll continue to track all of this. We appreciate your insight and really helping to calm as much of the fear that is out there tonight with this breaking news, and we'll obviously call on your expertise in the days to come. Dr. Devi Nampiaparampil there joining us late at night there in New York. Thanks very much.
Thank you.